All right, let's get right into it. Today, we're going to talk about two massive, kind of hidden forces that might be completely reshaping America's economic future.
So the big question on a lot of people's minds is a huge American economic boom just around the corner? Well, the answer might actually be yes. But, and this is the really interesting part, it's for reasons that most people are completely missing.
You see, the real action isn't happening in the big, splashy headlines. It's all hidden in plain sight, tucked away in the super fine print of some really complex international deals and, believe it or not, some seriously powerful financial rules.
What we're really looking at here is a totally new economic playbook. There are two big strategies emerging that are just completely changing the game for the U.S. economy. So first up, the whole idea of leverage. It's this big shift away from just, handing out cash subsidies. And the perfect case study for this, you've got to look at the recent deal with TSMC. That's the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Corporation. I mean, just look at the difference here. The old plan was pretty straightforward, classic government stuff. Hey, here's $6 billion, go build us a $60 billion factory. But the new plan? Whoa, it completely flipped the script. Instead of a simple handout, they used leverage. We're talking threatening tariffs, actually enforcing the fine print of contracts. And what did they get? A commitment for a factory worth over $165 billion. That is a massive, massive difference. And this just nails the new logic perfectly. I mean, think about it. A company like TSMC, they're worth $1 trillion. They don't need a few billion in American subsidies. What they absolutely positively cannot live without is access to the American market. That's the real prize. So you're probably wondering, okay, what was this magical leverage? And this is the part that's kind of wild. Apparently, negotiators went deep into the fine print of the original contract. They pointed to stuff that wasn't getting done. Things like diversity requirements, even a promised daycare center that wasn't built, and used that to declare TSMC in breach of contract. That's what forced them back to the negotiating table. And boom, the deal explodes from $60 billion to over $165 billion. It's just a brilliant use of contractual details to land a huge economic win. All right, let's look at another example of this, the NVIDIA negotiation. We see this exact same kind of leverage-based thinking, but this time it's applied to tech exports. So, NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen Huang, he came in with this really interesting argument. He basically said, look, if we just completely cut China off, all they're going to do is pour money into building their own chip companies. So what's the alternative? His idea was sell them chips that are good, but not our absolute best cutting-edge stuff. The logic is, this keeps them on the hook, buying from us, instead of building up their own competitors. And this isn't just some simple handshake deal, not at all. It's this really tightly controlled five-step dance. First, NVIDIA has to ship the chips to the US so officials can test them and make sure they haven't been secretly beefed up. Then, wham, a 25% tariff gets slapped on and collected. It's only after all that an export license gets issued, and the chips can finally go to China. When you break it down, the benefits of this setup are pretty genius. For one, the US gets direct revenue from the tariffs. It also lets them keep a close eye on what tech China is buying. Plus, it helps US companies like NVIDIA stay competitive on the world stage. And, maybe the biggest one of all, it lets the US keep a hand on the wheel when it comes to the most critical technology on the planet.
Okay, so that was lever number one, strategic leverage. Now for the second lever, and I gotta be honest with you, this next one sounds super boring on the surface, but stick with me here, because this seemingly dry little rule might actually be the most powerful economic tool of them all.
Cathie would have the perfect description for it. Super boring, but super important. And that really is the best way to think about this. What are we talking about? A change to tax depreciation rules. Yeah, I know, but trust me.
So what the heck is accelerated depreciation? Okay, let's break it down real simple. Imagine a company builds a huge new factory. Normally, they'd get a small tax deduction for that factory every year for like decades. With this new rule, they can deduct the entire cost of that brand new factory in the very first year, all at once. And you really have to appreciate how massive this change is. Before, you'd deduct a tiny piece of the cost each year for 30, maybe 40 years. Now, you write off 100% in year one. For any CFO doing the math on where to build a new factory, this is an absolute game changer. It totally rewrites the financial equation. And the impact? It's just staggering. This one single rule is pretty much the reason America's effective corporate tax rate has cratered to just 10%. To put that in perspective, that is now the lowest in the entire developed world, period. Okay, let's put some real numbers on this so it makes sense. Say you're a company,
and you build a $20 billion factory. Thanks to this rule, you can get an immediate tax refund of roughly $7 billion. Just like that, your actual cost for that massive project isn't $20 billion anymore, it's $13 billion. The government is basically writing you a check for a huge chunk of your factory, all through the tax code.
And as you can imagine, this has lit a fire under everyone. There's a huge sense of urgency because there's a deadline. To get this 100% first-year write-off, companies have to break ground before the end of 2028. So right now the clock is ticking, and it's kicking off this massive race to plan and build in the US.
All right, let's pull back and look at the big picture. What does all this mean for America? We've got these two incredibly powerful levers, this smart strategic leverage and these insane tax incentives. So what happens when you put them both together?
Well, what you get is a totally new playbook for America's economy. You stop just giving out cash subsidies and start using access to your market as a massive bargaining chip. You replace those old handouts with smart tariffs that actually bring in money. And the real kicker, you create these unbelievably powerful financial reasons through the tax code for capital from all over the world to come flooding in. It's all about the pure economics of it.
So here's the bottom line. This isn't happening because of some political speeches or asking companies to be patriotic. Capital is pouring into America for one simple, cold, hard reason. Someone, somewhere, quietly changed the math. And in doing so, they made the United States, on paper, the single most attractive and profitable place in the entire world to build something big.
And that really leaves us with the big question, right? Are these the sort of hidden, almost secret tools that are going to define the next era of the global economy? It's definitely something to think about. Thanks for tuning in.